Hello and welcome to the Digital Digest, your weekly breakfast of insights, tips and tricks and general information that will help anyone trying to move things forward in this digital world of accounting. This show is sponsored by iPlicit, the mid-market accounting solution designed for businesses that outgrow the smaller finance tools. It's also brought to you both by the Digital Disruptors and SB Digital, which are pushing the boundaries in the digital accountancy space. I'm your host, Ryan Piercy, and this episode is on our digital transformation series and finishing it off, reflecting on, I guess, how projects have gone and determining success. And I'm lucky enough to be joined by Sam King from the Systems Advisory Network, head of Xero for Education, part of Thorn Widgery. So, look, we've been doing this digital transformation series for probably many months now, maybe like 7-8 months. I think it's good to first, as we're talking about reflection, map out where we've been. So we kicked this off talking about what the modern ERP is, all based cloud-based tools, things that Sam and I are kind of surrounded by on a day-to-day basis. And then we kicked off, I guess, the main part of the series by talking about how you or what you should do before you start a project, moving into, I guess, those bits you do at the start of the project, the advisory, establishing what systems you want, focusing on process mapping and how you will approach a project to manage change effectively. We dived into scope creep, how you manage that and keep a project on track. And then also how you manage all the different elements and the team members inside any given digital transformation project. We moved from that into how you assess effective training and also dealing with handover and into a support element of any project, whether that's you're doing it yourself and you need to continue that, i.e. with marking this completed, or you're doing it for a client. And then to summarize all this, we're going to bring it together by assessing, determining success. So I guess key part of this is, we have to look back. So Sam, look, what is the point of this? Why should we be reflecting at the end of any digital transformation project that we carry out?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think one of the key reasons why we need to reflect is because these projects are sometimes small, they're sometimes huge. So trying to make sure that you have that, even if it's half an hour with the client or with your team, to say, look, this is what we set out to do and this is what we've actually done. I think it's really important, because if we don't, then it's quite often taken for granted, maybe on both sides of the fence. And so us being able to actually say, look, this is our line in the sand, this is where we were, this is where we are now. Let's just actually reflect on that to see how far you've come in normally a relatively short amount of time as well. Also, I do think that we are relatively guilty, certainly I know my team are, of just kind of getting on with things without actually taking some credit for what we have done. So I think that's really important to try to almost have that badge of honour to say, look, this is what we set out to do, this is what we have now achieved, and we've actually done it together. Because you mentioned about scope creep as one of the earlier sessions that I listened to, and that's actually really important to kind of reflect on as well, to say, look, all these things were variables that changed after the project, but we've handled them in X, Y, and Z. And whether that means that there are additional fees at the time, whether it means that there's potential further work on other projects, and it's all kind of good things for you in digital transformation.
Yeah, and we live in a world now where change seems to be happening all the time. We might do a project and then we're instantly thinking about the next one. And we don't always give ourselves enough time to breathe, look back and go, well, see where we've come in this period. And as you said, right, it could be something very small. It could be a small tweak, or it could be a huge thing that takes months, if not years, to complete. And looking back and going, okay, where was the world? Because any project can be painful, especially like the period after you go, okay, we're pushing the green light on this. And then back go, okay, we've gone through this pain, but what did it look like? And a lot of people forget they've got the new system. It's not 100% perfect. There's a couple of little points that frustrate them, and they're like, "Oh, this is the end of the world." And you go, "Well, actually, where were you? Where were you before we did this?" And when they look back, they go, "Oh, yeah, God, how do we even work that way like now? Because it feels completely different." So I think a key thing for us, I guess, is to try and understand, well, what is success? What is it that makes any project be positive or negative? So what is it, I guess, in your world when you're doing projects with XFE that sets out what success looks like? Like, what for you would be the key metrics you go, yes, this has been a positive project?
Yeah, I think there's there's two sides to success with the projects we work on. So there's very much the organisation and the business side of success, where they might be driven by a certain financial metric or certain number of hours that are saved in efficiency. That's obviously important because we want to be as efficient as we can to, in particular in our line of work, to maybe scale the number of organisations in a academy trust as an example without necessarily adding the headcount. It also might be on the more kind of commercial side of things that they're looking to reduce debtor days, looking to have tighter controls on spending, all those bits and bobs which all adds up. So there's those sides of things which they're probably easier to measure in terms of you can, well, I say that it's quite difficult with maybe the existing systems to measure how long people are taking or what their debtor days are, for example, because the data's just not there often. But actually, then we go on to the other side of the coin, which is very much the human element. So the people involved in the process. So to me, that's almost the key driver for us, especially that not-for-profit sector. So that I was listening to the pod you were talking with John about the not-for-profit sector, and really interesting to me how you mentioned the fact that a lot of people are volunteers in that sector, or maybe they've got a certain amount of hours, it's quite tight budgets, and being able to allow those people to work within a certain time frame. So rather than working 5 a.m. to 9 p.m, working maybe 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on things would be a good start. And actually, success to them is just getting home to make sure that they can tuck the kids up, or making sure that they've got their weekends free. So I think there's two kind of measures of success really, from both the business point of view and the actual people within the business. And that obviously overlaps for the owner-managed businesses as well, as you can obviously understand.
Yeah, definitely. It's so subjective. It really depends on the context that that person's coming in with from a project perspective. It could be that they need to save time. It could be they want to save money. Like, can we just reduce the cost of our systems because they seem to be spiraling out of control? Or, yeah, can we free up some of the time so that I can do more? For example, we've talked to many business owners that are like, I just am getting so bogged down in the paperwork. I want to go out and win more work and I can't do that. Can we free up my time to enable it? Or they've lost a key staff member, or they want to grow and they're like, okay, we don't want to hire anyone else. So there's so many subjective things into it. But the critical part in any project, and this is where it goes right back to the start of this series, is that you have to have set those out right at the beginning. You have to set out what is it we want to achieve. And then right at the end, where we are, once we've delivered, when we've gone through, I guess, that early support period, we'd have to look back and go, against those, how have we done? Because as you said, Sam, the project always meanders. You start off with, this is our clear focus, and you're like, oh, can we do this? Or actually, we can't do what we wanted to do in that area. And it kind of meanders back to an end goal, which ultimately is delivering. But is it delivered on our key objectives? That's the critical thing we have to assess. And if it hasn't, have we still benefited? Are we still brought something in that's pushed the business forward? And if it hasn't, then you've got that challenging conversation that goes, okay, we might need to reassess this. And unfortunately, maybe not start it all off over again, but start something again here. Now, the beauty, I guess, in what we do when we do our advisory element is when you're talking about the figures, we map out the actual cost of operations for a business, and then we can look to go, well, what is your cost of operations now? You're tracking how long something takes. So you can get that tangible, like, what's the efficiency saving? A lot of businesses can't achieve that because they don't map it out. So that's a critical part. If you do want to do that, look at your process mapping element. Look at this, the episode we talked about that, so you can see how can we map that, how can we establish it, how can we then report on the value. But I guess from our perspective, so when we're doing it for clients, what would we deem a successful project? Have you got any, like, maybe not KPIs, but have you got any critical things that you look and go, this was good, and or this could have been improved?
Yeah, so we're quite comfortable with a lot of the, because we've niched on a certain sector, we know what goes well and what doesn't go well as well at times. I think one of our key measures is actually the change curve. So there's often that dip in terms of kind of the confidence of the buyer, so to speak, and we've got to make sure that dip is as shallow and as short as possible. And that often means that we might need to do things that are slightly out of our comfort zone in terms of making sure that the client can post the finance system earlier than what we would like them to normally, because they need to do a payment run, or they need to do something that is what they would describe as business critical. We also then like to measure the data side of things. So let's look at how many lines of data we have put in for the client. I think I mentioned this before. I've certainly mentioned it to you, Ryan, whether it's on one of these calls or not, about the fact that clients, they often see success as their final product balanced into their kind of year-end account, when actually on digital transformation, that's a whole new piece within itself. So trying to make sure that they actually understand what success from our point of view looks like is really important, because we then produce summaries of the family contacts you brought in. This is what we did, X, Y, Z, and we almost now show them our workings to some degree, which can be quite dangerous at times as well, because they don't have a clue what we've done, but it's also really good on that. I do think that going back to the actual how we kind of measure that success around our processes, very much a case of, do we feel good about the job that we've done? That's quite subjective, admittedly, but then we do actually go to the client, and we now ask for kind of reviews of how we did on certain things. What could we do better? We actually had one over the weekend, over the last week or so, where clients said, well, actually, these things maybe didn't go to plan, and we know that they didn't, to be fair, so we make mistakes. But it's kind of, now we can jump on a call with them to say, look, how can we make this better for you, which means it makes it better for other clients. So I think it's that continual improvement, and making sure that we don't just stand still on what we do, because we know the next implementation project, whether it's for the same app, different app, same finance systems, etc., it's going to be a very, very similar sort of process we follow anyway.
Yeah, look, feedback is critical, and I think we're all guilty of not getting feedback where it's positive or negative when we should do, and that's both ways. It's giving the feedback, but also providing feedback. I think it's great that you summarise the client. This is what we've done. This is what we've delivered. Just to reiterate, this is how much work has gone in, and these are the ways maybe that this was our initial scope, and this is what we've done extra, because it does then kind of report back that value when they're going, okay, how did this project go? And then seeking that feedback and being very open about that. I think that's a great idea on sharing your working papers. I've been toying with that concept for a while, because part of it is that they'll come and ask questions, and our working papers already answer that straight away. They don't need to, challenge us on something when it's right there. But the other bit is that you're basically going, this is everything. This is everything we've done. We're being completely open and honest with you. We're not trying to hide anything here. And so, it's critical to do that. So the other bit, I guess, that you started to talk about, which I think is really important, is building back into the process, that feedback loop, because we're all learning. This space is still so new, and people are kind of going on that journey. I know we've been doing this for a number of years now. I know people are starting this, or they could be in a business that they've not changed their system for 20 years. I have come across those, and it's like, what do we do, right? How do we do any of this? So learning from it and then evolving it, especially as with AI around the corner, we're going to be having to revise what we're doing again. Systems are changing so frequently now. You're always having to look and consider, like, what should I be doing? How do I get the most out of my data? How do I get the most out of my team? So when you're doing that, like, because I know you use a really good kind of task tracking system for your projects, how are you, I guess, taking the feedback you've got and building that back into the process? Like, how do you do that with your team?
Yeah, so it's twofold, really. So first off is it's on me, the scoping of the project. So I've now, well, I've had it for a while, but I've got the list of questions that I ask the client just as an initial conversation, because then we've got the facts from the client. Because too many times in the past, it's been a case of, we don't know what budget system they use, or we don't know what they want to do with X, Y, Z. So trying to get that infinite detail, it takes 10 minutes extra during scoping, but that's crucial. And I've been adapting the questions to ask based on changes in the market as well, because there's been certain things that come to market, and a lot of people start to use that particular thing. So you say, right, we need to make sure we understand whether they use it or not. So that's important at the scoping stage. But then I guess the continual improvement, we don't wait until the project's finished to tweak our process. We do it as we go. So, for example, we've got automations that will send out follow-up emails to clients based upon a certain action or trigger being done. If that email is out of date, we'll change the template immediately rather than wait and edit it manually. As soon as we need to edit something manually, we then stop and say, right, at what point is this going to be the normal for what we're doing, or is it a real kind of bespoke situation that we're dealing with here? So I think that this whole Kaizen 1% here and there approach really works well for us as a project team because we can then make sure that everybody's on board. And it's not just changing the tasks or changing the process we do, it's also within the task. So the data transformation piece, we're constantly finding faster ways of doing things and quicker ways of transforming the data from A to B in using query editor, using automations, using all these things. Because I've said it before, my team, they're sharp, but they're lazy in terms of why would I do it myself manually if the computer can do it for me? So that's, I guess, in the interest of just building it back into the process. We're doing it constantly, really. Normally based upon, and we get frustrated about this, based upon the fact that, okay, so why didn't we think about this 6 months ago almost? So we're always kicking ourselves almost about the fact we haven't done it before, but at the same time, it's good that we are doing it.
Oh no, it's great that you've got your whole team doing this. I think there's a lot of organisations that are scared to, empower their team to come and make those changes. Do you have any like checks and balances, like as someone identifies something to change? Because I know that from doing this, you can go and change one small thing, and that can have an impact that kind of spreads around, through everything you do. So how do you, if someone identifies something, is it they change it straight away, or do they have to, check with someone else? How does that process work?
Definitely do not change it both ways, because the difficulty you've got is that individual knows potentially that bit of that process and they don't know the wider implications. So they will run it past myself or Evan, who's my kind of right hand man on things, and just double check and make sure that it's not going to cause bigger issues down the line, because the way that we've got things, it is very kind of dependent on other things being there. So if you change a few words, all of a sudden it could have that domino effect, or actually the dominoes stop falling to a degree. So it means that then it all kind of halts. So we do make sure that people understand, and also then it's good for them to understand, well, actually, we can't do it this way because of the fact that X, Y, Z. And we get that quite often with apprentices or more junior members of the team, where they come in 2 weeks into the job, they think that, oh, it's easy, just do this and that, and then you need to explain to them, well, actually, you really think we haven't thought about this before? We have thought about it, and we can't do it because of this, this, and this. So I'm sure you've been there as well, where certain people look at you, even clients to some degree, say, oh, that's easy, just do this and that, and you almost say, it's that easy, do it if you like, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
It's quite important to make sure that there is a filtering system within that as well. But the key thing to us is we've got our own team chat about kind of our team channel about areas to improve, and we have our team meeting fortnightly where people put things on there where it normally just gets discussed, right, what do we change on this or that, but we don't want to drag it out. If it's something that just needs doing, we just do it, basically.
Yeah, that's great. And the things about what you learn from digital transformation, doing it internally or doing it for other businesses, is how you can then spread that across other things you consider. And I think, Sam, you're similar to us in that we started doing this externally, and then you kind of get dragged in and you end up doing it internally because it's just the skill set is there and you can just replicate it to some extent. Although you're niched very much in the academy and teaching space, what you do could be replicated across other sectors if you want to, because it's the process, it's the mechanics that go into that. And I think that reflection is critical, and it's a key part of any project, and then building that in so that you learn and you evolve. So as part of that, right, if you've wanted, or you've listened to this one, you go, okay, I want to know more, please do look back through the back catalogue. As I said, we've got a number of areas that we've delved into in a lot of detail. Process mapping is probably a critical one if you're looking to start out. But the other thing I'd always say is, if you're diving into digital transformation, whether you want to do this as a service or you want to do this internally, is go and talk to people. We have a wonderful community in the Systems Advisory Network where we learn, share information between each other and ourselves. But we talk to many businesses. Like we want to educate and improve and help all businesses improve their systems. So that's a critical thing. If you want to do this, please do contact either Sam, myself, or anyone else that's in this space. And I feel that that is a great place to wrap up this week's show, but also this entire series that we've been talking about digital transformation. Hopefully, this episode and series have provided you valuable insights you can take forward. Please do check out the show notes for links to Digital Disruptors, SB Digital, and our wonderful sponsor, iPlicit, as well as Sam and the team at XFE. If you do want to catch future episodes, or look at our back catalogue, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you look out for future releases on a Thursday morning. We look forward to speaking to you again.